of admin. Okay, so welcome to Raising Alchemy. Raising Alchemy is all around inspiring confidence in the spiritual child. So from a parenting aspect, but also from within ourselves, so our own inner child. And we support parents, caregivers, just everyone really to move into their own truth so they can successfully lead by example. And that's why I'm really excited to welcome Susan Kinahan here. One of the pillars of Raising Alchemy is what I call soul care, which has a big aspect of self-care wrapped into it. And so I think it's really aligned with your work, Susan, on the transformative mothering in your podcast. So Susan supports people in remembering that we're more than enough, deserving and worthy just as we are, through speaking, writing and coaching. And she is the creator of the host of the Mothering Myself podcast, which is a podcast for people who desire to reconnect with their unconditional self-love, to find acceptance and belonging within. And Susan, for those who want to go deeper into the self-love and reparenting work, you support individuals in unraveling accumulated conditioning to strengthen one's inner truth, trust and intuitive potential. And that's in order to realign the soul's mission. In addition to mothering yourself every day, you're learning how to mother your daughter as you strive to consciously raise a sovereign soul, and in doing so, honouring each of your soul's journeys, experience, and the human potential. And Susan, on your website, and I'd love to read this out, and I've written it down here so I can read it out, is there's such a beautiful statement, and it's, we are birthed into a world, a blank slate. We are birthed into the world, a blank slate, unconditional love. We cartwheel through childhood, get lost in adolescence, and catapult into adulthood, having forgotten our inherent worth. And I read that a few times, and I just absolutely love it. It's just words that really, I think, ring really true to me. We often get lost, don't we, on our inherent worth, our worthiness, and who we are. And I'll hand over to you. I am interested, Susan, just in regards to part of your bio, you talk about reparenting. I'd be really interested in understanding your definition of that as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be here and have this conversation. Yeah, so it's funny, sometimes I think words just come to me, and transformative mothering really has evolved out of my life. I definitely at some point, I'm sure, knew I was worthy, but it really got lost in translation as I was growing up. So I was a really hurt child who really struggled and still find struggles daily, because healing is never a linear process. And, sometimes things come up that you're like, ooh, here we go again on another little journey. But finding self-worth and knowing that I belong, especially within myself, has been really my life's quest. And so it's really beautiful kind of to step into motherhood and step into this new kind of awakening, kind of watching all the pieces fall into place and understand that mothering in itself is an energy born within us all. But it feels like it has been so lost in our society and in our world. We're all birthed through the cosmic womb. We all are a part of Gaia, our earth. And at some point, that creative feminine potential gets lost in favor for the masculine. And we're taught to achieve and to be hard on ourselves and to push and to consider the future. And we're so future focused that we lose sight of our now moment. And our now moment is that potential that creates everything that will occur out of the seedlings that we plant right here, right now. And that is the mothering element. The mothering takes care of the now. The masculine takes care of the future. And in this Pisces era that we're really rapidly moving out of into this age of Aquarius, we have forgotten the mother and really focused on this paternal masculine energy. And what we're heading into, I believe, is really exciting because it finds a balance, because we have to be future focused, but we can't create all that it is that we see for ourselves without knowing that we have everything we need right here, right now. And I think for me, that's kind of reparenting. We're born to these parents, and I hear so many people, and my parents included, who were very great parents, you know, like they loved me, they gave me everything I need, but that love didn't translate to enable me to build an internal compass where I fully loved and accepted myself. So I was born to these two parents who really wanted a child, who spent years trying to bring a child into the world. And then when I entered the world, these two people were so human, and they had this unconditional love for me that they felt, that they knew, that they couldn't speak into words, but they didn't know unconditional love for themselves. And so all that they could teach me was what they knew of the world and all that they felt that the world created for them. And so we grow up with the stories of our families, with the stories of our parents. We grow up accumulating the information and learning through other people. And if other people are hurt children that never grew into a healed adult self, then we're all children trying to figure out how to climb out of being a child in our lives. And some of us might never, ever get out of that space. And so for me, the journey through healing and the journey through myself has been learning to embrace the mothering energy, because I was such like an achieving focused, looking outward. I needed to be a specific way. I needed to abide into a certain set of rules or characteristics or standards. I had to look a certain way. Like I was so wrapped up in what other people told me I needed to be in order to be loved. And I really despised myself. And so my journey has really been learning how to come home to myself and knowing it from within, because so many times people can tell you something, like your parents can say, but I love you, or, you know, but I cared for you, but you had this. And it's like, that's all gaslighting, because yeah, it's true. And also like we hear it, but we don't feel it. And we are told sometimes by employers or friends or partners, like, you're so beautiful, or you're so kind, or you're so generous. And we hear it and we're like, but you don't really know me. Like, I'm not that person. I'm not who you think that I am. I don't know how it is that you're seeing these characteristics within me, because my internal compass of who I am, I was taught that I'm not those things. And I'm trying hard, but I can't believe what you're telling me because I don't know it for myself. So I think that's really the journey. And I think that's really humanity's journey right now, is to learn how to come home to ourselves so that we can learn how to be in relationship with one another.
Yeah, and ourselves. And I love that. And, you know, you're spot on there as well from my perspective in regards to, you know, as children and our own children, you know, it's not even our surface value and what they see. They really pick up on how we feel, right, in those moments. And you can say anything and you can form the words, and, you know, but unless you really are heart-centered in the feeling and the energy of what you're saying, they can pick up on that as well. And I think sometimes when we're trying to do either our self-talk or to children, if we're not really stepping into that feeling of the essence of what we're trying to achieve there, it gets lost just as easily, right? Like it's so important. And I really love how you say in order to come home, or we're needing to come home into that feeling and that truth, because it's absolutely beautiful. And you're so right. And how do you find, and this is jumping probably a little bit ahead here, but I am really interested in how do you step back in moments of your own parenting with your daughter, and kind of, you know, do you hear your parents, or do you know, how do you navigate this work with mothering yourself? And it's, you know, something so important that I believe we all need to do, and how you relate to your daughter, if that makes sense. And do you see, you know, do you kind of flow and navigate through that, or do you get stuck in places with it still, or how do you adjust with that?
Yeah, I think everyone is going to have such a different process in this. I think for me, well, first I want to be really clear, like there is no perfect parent. Like we're all going to have moments where we make mistakes. We're human. Like no matter how spiritually evolved we are in these human bodies in this human form, and sometimes our awareness slips and we mess up. So what I really trust in parenting is that I am the perfect parent for my daughter. And I trust that I believe I'm a portal. So one thing I really believe is that we do not own our children. And I do not believe that my daughter is my property. I believe that I'm here to keep her safe and to support her in critically examining her world and creating her own perspective of what is. And so that is my philosophy in parenting. And within that, obviously, I need to keep her safe. So there's boundaries and respect, but I think respect is something that's mutual. So she is as respected as being a child as I'm respected for being a child in adult form. And I think there's something in our society where it's a real thing. It's childism, where we're like, you know nothing, you're not where I am, you haven't lived through enough life. And I don't buy into that. I think as souls, we are so advanced and evolved, and it takes us a while in this 3D reality to come and remember all of our expansive and amazingly profound wisdom that can be found as we navigate who it is that we actually are in this lifetime. And we remember if we don't come into the life already remembering. And that said, children are so connected. They're so sensitive. They're so into their emotional body. They're so into other realms. Like children's imagination is a place of potential to develop whatever it is that they're here to develop if it's fostered. So I believe that, and this is one of the things when it comes to reparenting, is I think reparenting sometimes gets this really negative rap energetically, because I hear so many times people are coming at it so angry, and it's part of the process is moving through these layers and feeling betrayed and feeling hurt and feeling rejected or neglected from our family of origin in this lifetime, whoever it is that we were born into. But without a spiritual lens, we get so into this resistance and this rebellion of who our family is that we can't move through this process of accepting that we chose them as much as they created us. It's mutual. So like, while I grew up and had some struggles with my family, I very much believe that I chose my parents, and I consider them two of my greatest teachers. And I still believe that even when we butt heads, and there are still tense moments where I'm like, I'm just telling you how I feel. I just need you to hear me speak my truth so that I don't continue to shut it down in favor of making you feel comfortable with who I am.
Oh, I love that.
So I think those aspects are really important in the way that I parent. I also think that in respect to the parenting journey, transparency is crucial. Like for me, obviously within stages of child development, there are appropriate things to share and not to share, and everyone feels that out on their own. And also our circumstances are different. So what one family shares with their children might be totally different from another family. It's no right or wrong. It's what feels right to the parent, trusting again that like we're doing what we can with what we know to the best of our capability. But for me, like when I'm speaking with my daughter, I speak to her like a friend. I'm raising my child like I'm developing a person who wants to be friends with me 20 years down the line, not who feels obligated to be in my life because of all the things that I did for her. I want to be a person who is a safe person in my child's life. I don't want to be a parent that my child fears if something goes wrong. Like, what support am I in my child's life, who I brought into this world, if she makes a mistake and I can't handle that outcome, so that she doesn't come with me and she finds herself in more trouble because there wasn't a safe person in her immediate family to come to. So I think like at this point, I've also done a lot of work and a lot of self-reflection and had a lot of therapy sessions. Like I'm at a point where I'm not really triggered by my childhood itself. And I actually really use it as a tool to think of how it is that I would feel if I were the child. while at the same time remembering that I am the adult and that I'm responsible for fostering a safe environment for my child to have the space to feel everything. So one of the things in my family was emotions and feelings and regulating emotions was something that no one spoke about, or it was something that was like very behind the scenes, like not a thing. And I was a strong-willed child. I was angry. I got pissed off. I like if I didn't understand something, I would fight it because it didn't make sense to me. And so what I'm trying to foster with my daughter is that it's okay to be angry, but we have to understand how to safely place that anger somewhere or use it so that it can support us. And I like want to talk about those emotions, and similarly with sadness and all of the uncomfortable emotions that so many adults I know repress, and myself too sometimes. And I'm like, I don't want to feel it. All of those emotions are a part of our experience, and they tell us so much about ourselves. And like we truly have to feel our experiences to heal them. And I just, for my daughter, emotions are safe. My emotions are okay to have. They're okay to be seen. Tears are appreciated. The release is cathartic. I just feel like it's all about the environment that you create. And again, the more that you slip up, the more you have opportunity to make it different. Like everything is an opportunity. Nothing is the end all be all. And
yeah, I love that. Everything is an opportunity. And I really hear on that safe, respect, and trust. It's so incredibly important. I've been really working with myself on really building and ensuring that this is an environment of trust for my daughter as well. And for myself, like sometimes I think we're just so hard on ourselves, and it's actually stepping into the place internally where actually I can trust myself to be completely me and know that it's going to be okay, and that whole forgiveness aspect as well. And I am going to say this, so just before we jumped on, I did say to Susan that I had quite a hard morning, both parenting and just within myself. And so this is absolutely beautiful for me, because what you're saying is really just reaffirming what I know but need to hear. So thank you for that, because, as you say, none of this journey is about perfection. And we want to be great parents, but we also want to be, that whole mothering ourselves is so inherently important. Like there's just so much, it benefits us in every single way, and in fact, sometimes I wonder how we can move forward without actually being able to do that for ourselves, because to really be those parents we want to be, or the friend we want to be, or the partner we want to be, we have to love ourselves first. And that term gets thrown around quite flippantly sometimes, and it gets a little bit airy-fairy with people, but there is so much truth in that, and stepping into that, which is why I started listening to your podcast, and I followed you on Instagram, and that's why I reached out, because I was like, this is amazing. And I think the way you explain it is such a lovely way, the way you use your words for people to understand and grasp the concept. So I think it's amazing with what you're doing with your podcasts and the Insta posts and stuff. Really beautiful. And can you just mentioned something there that I'd just like to explore a little bit, and we were talking about the emotions and feelings, and you just made a comment around like how to use the anger. What did you say? I can't quite remember what the term was, but you were talking about safe ways of using it, or using it to support yourself, or using it in a way. So it'd be great if you could explain that a little bit more. Like for me, I kind of try, and when my daughter is feeling, in that state, we talk about how it's okay to, hit a pillow or to take it out on the pillow and not people, and kind of regulating that emotion. But can you explain a little bit more around that?
Yeah. So anger is part of our core emotional bodies. It's an emotion that we can all read on people. We know when people are angry, we can feel anger. And anger, when it's utilized properly, can be an extremely motivating and inspiring source. Anger can propel us to take action, like all of the social justice that's occurring right now in the country, in the US, and across the world, really. All of the rioting, like it emerges out of anger. And when it's harnessed and it's used so that we can create positive action without losing ourselves in our anger, it can become a really, really powerful tool and can speak monumentally in terms of making change happen. So with a child, if a child's feeling really angry and they flip the lid and suddenly like their little bodies can't hold all of that stuff, things that I like to do are like just move your body, shake things out. Like I went through a period of my life where I was just feeling so many things. I would literally walk down the street shaking energy. I just felt like I had to get it off of me. So sometimes if we're feeling really angry, we're like, yeah, we're feeling really angry. And we like air punch. We put on some like really intense beats and we're like, whoa. And by the end, we're laughing and we're still feeling charged. But we're like, this is kind of funny. And I mean, for myself, when I feel angry, like taking a run, going for a run, going to a class, to like a kickboxing class, or doing some YouTube, like really intense workout, just to get the energy moving through me, and making myself feel really charged so that it's not coming out of me in ways that are unhealthy, so that I can actually turn that energy into something that's going to push me to move forward. So for me, in some of these like really intense family moments where I am learning how to speak my truth and speaking to things that need to be spoken, that's my daughter, if you can hear her. We might actually have some anger in a moment when I don't answer the door. But some things that would come up in some of those conversations just would like make me so mad. And honestly, anger is still one of those emotions that is really difficult for me to allow myself to feel. As a child, it is the emotion that got completely shut down and repressed. And rather than getting really angry and acting out, I just was like Stonewall Susan, out of protection and out of safety, because I was so afraid of what that anger would become through how I saw it expressed in my home and through what I saw myself do. I mean, it's shame and guilt, and you feel so many things. It's amazing what it does to our emotional bodies and to our ability to fully express ourselves. So for me, and sometimes these really, really intense conversations that bring up all of this childhood stuff where you're like, those emotions are still really real. Breathing is the biggest thing. If I can just like connect with my breath and remember to stay present in my body and to like kind of like riding a contraction, like breathe through that really big feeling and then like it out, I have a better chance of like staying level-headed. But again, it's such a practice.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned that. I was actually talking to someone this week. I hold a lot of anger as well. And sometimes to even be able to say that out loud, let alone on the live, it comes with this whole, am I going to be judged, and the shame and all of that around it. But so many of us do. And as a child myself, like with what you mentioned, I just shut down. I used to shut down and hide. So anything I could crawl under, that I'd fit under, and that emotion never got an opportunity to come out. And I find, and mostly through being a mum and a parent, that I guess triggers or the awareness of my own daughter and me, like I can really feel a lot of that coming out. And as you say, that healthy way of trying to find ways to manage that or allow it to come out in a healthy way is really the key to that. But I think it's important to mention, and I love that you did, because I think a lot of people feel quite like it's not okay, or then they can't talk about it, or they don't want to admit that it's there, or they just feel like it's one of those things that have been suppressed, I think, in society a lot as well, that it's not acceptable. And it's changing that and saying, well, actually it is acceptable. It's how we release that emotion that is the core, a key from that. But
I was going to add, I think it's specific to women. Like
Yeah.
it's specific if you identify as a woman, you're too loud, you take up too much space, you have too many opinions, you are, insert however many bad words. And I think it comes back to that mothering energy in the divine feminine. There are these assumptions, unspoken societal assumptions that women are supposed to be the peacemakers. Women are supposed to be silent, to stay in the background, to, be complicit with whatever has been. And I think that is the biggest misconstrued truth that is a woman, because women are not here to be complicit and complacent. Women, a divine woman, a divine feminine energy is not here to stay in anything that is unjust or unfair, that isn't looking out for the well-being of every single child, every single human, that isn't, when you look at the goddesses, you look at Kali, you look at Durga, you look at these really vivacious, vibrant, ferocious figures that are the mama protector, the fierce energy that will not put up with anyone's bullshit. And I think like societally, again, like the feminine has been so dismissed in favor of the masculine to be the all knowing, all being, all this. And the balance is that again, the masculine is practical and logical and linear, but the feminine feels, and the feminine knows intuitively and is into the whole experience, not just the part of it that makes sense. And I really think that kind of all that is becoming, whether it's a man or a woman, because the mothering energy is within any gender, any kind of gender identity. And this is like the beautiful thing to me about the way that the world is evolving, is that like these two polarities, masculine and feminine, are in balance within us each. However we express those are our choice in our body, like however that is, there is no right or wrong to it. And again, that's kind of in this space of conditioning and limitations. And I know in my bio there's like so many like jarbled words that I'm slowly trying to become more clear and like, what do I actually do with people? But a huge part of my work is really unraveling conditioning. So identifying the limited beliefs and concepts about ourselves that we accumulated via our parents, via society, via school, via our peers, the world at large, like whatever it is that we tell ourselves we can't be because we're supposed to fit into this other world that makes sense if we're more like it than actually allow ourselves to be who it is that we are. And again, it's like when we connect with that mothering energy, regardless of who we are or how we identify or what we, what racial category we fit into or ethnic category, like we are perfect as we are in all of our form. There is nothing that we need to fit into to be loved. That is the illusion. The biggest truth is that like we are love already in all of us. And what's unbecoming is to forget that and move through our lives rejecting what love truly is.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And, we are, right? We're just souls in human form. You know what I mean? And so that balance of masculine and feminine is really important to remember as well, right? And, we have a different, we have womb, our reproductive organs and stuff, and things are different. But essentially at our core, we are that balance of masculine and feminine. And it's sort of that face value that has rocked society over the years for, various reasons, and it's coming back into that. And I think it's really important for males as well to realize that they have that mothering energy, and you see it often with dads, right? Or men with little children, that really just care and love for them so much, and that softness that comes through with them, which is just absolutely beautiful. And we're starting to see that shift, right? Like I went to a festival, I can't remember now, it must have been at the start of the year, and it was just so amazing to see all these guys there, and every time they'd greet each other at a part of an event or the following day, and just hugging and, you know, like just being warm and sharing that with each other. And it's unfortunate that it's so unusual, or that it took my, you know, it got my attention, because that's how it should be, right? That whole, you know, and that's their femininity, the feminine energy coming through, and them going, actually, it's okay to hug another guy and be okay with it. So I think it's really important to embrace that on both sides, right? Like, I think we've seen a bit of a surge with the feminine rising, I guess, so to speak, and we need to make sure that things remain balanced with that as well, right? Which is important in all aspects for ourselves and for what our children see as well, right? Like, yeah, that's incredible. Susan, can you speak a little bit of how your podcast started, and where that passion for spreading your message came from?
Yeah, well, this is funny. So I'm a Cancer, I'm a July birthday, so I'm the mother of astrology.
I'm a Cancer too, so yeah.
Yes. And because I struggled so much with this idea of mothering growing up, I really felt like I was born into the wrong time slot of my life. I was like, I am not here to be a mother. I absolutely cannot relate to this crap. I don't understand. And then ironically, I guess it was around 2015, about 5 years ago, I went to an astrologer for the first time, kind of as I was going through a very dark night of the soul, really confused. My life kind of came to a head, and I was like, what am I doing? What do I want? Am I happy? I thought I've been healing, but it feels like I'm maybe haven't been. What's going on? So I went to this astrologer, and she was like, well, you're here to be a mother. And at the time, I was like, she's wrong. He doesn't know anything. And I remember sitting there with her, and at the time I had a raw food business. I was a yoga teacher. I was a health coach. And she's like, well, and I was like, no, you're wrong. I think I told her that. And she was like, well, I mean, you are mothering, like you make food, you help people get to know themselves through a yoga asana class. You support people in like everything you choose to do. And I was like, okay, I get that. Like, I guess I kind of mother people, but I'm not here to be a mother. And then fast forward through a lot of things in like 2 years. And then I'm sure some people find this strange, but I met my daughter 6 months before she was born. I felt her. And in this astrology session, back when too, she was like, you're contracted to have a child. And at the time I was like, I don't know that I want a child, so whatever. So anyways, fast forward through my spiritual evolution, kind of coming into some gifts, and suddenly there was this child all around me. And I was just like, oh my God, not ready for you to come into my life. What are you doing here right now? So at that point I was like, well, this is interesting. And I had been doing a lot of inner work, and I was really getting to know my inner child in a way that I never had before, and embracing her and allowing her to come more into the centerfold of my life. And then again, lots of magical synchronicities occurred. I found my way to Peru to do an ayahuasca ceremony where I met my daughter, and the whole ceremony essentially was about coming home into my motherhood and coming home into this role of mother. And again, at the time, I was just like, well, this sounds nice, but what does this mean? So literally got off the plane, probably got pregnant. 9 months later, had my daughter. And throughout this journey through my pregnancy, it was just really intense. I was sick for 23 weeks. I had just left a job. I was starting something else, and I was too sick to really start what I wanted to create. I was going to work from home for myself and take some time to build this thing. That never happened. But when I couldn't move on the couch and I couldn't work toward my goals, and I felt like absolutely energetically done, I went through 9 months of release and releasing the aspects of myself so associated with my worth, like finances and what do I do if I'm not working, and how to identify myself if I'm not in a like future oriented career space, and who am I if I'm only a mother, and like only a mother, which now I recognize mothering is like being a mom all the time is a lot of work. But at the time, I was like, that's not who I'm here to be. I'm here to do other things. And just like all of these stories I had accumulated and I told myself in these layers of what a mother is and what I didn't want to be a mother, and what I saw my grandmother do and how I saw my mom act, and the other mothers that were around me mothering. I just had to look at them all and learn how to love each of them and find myself within myself. And I think for me, that really set me into motherhood, because then I had a 36-hour labor where I started in natural birth center and ended with a C-section. And in that process, I just realized like, I am so not in control. I'm not in control of how I want things to go with this child. I wasn't in control of my pregnancy. It wasn't what I expected. I wasn't in control of this labor. It was absolutely not what I expected. And so once my daughter came into the world, I was like, I'm here to experience what this is. And so it was a really beautiful transition of stepping into motherhood fresh and like really feeling so reborn through the experience, which I know for every mother it is, whether they're adopted or we foster a child, like the process of a child coming into our lives in any way is extremely transformative and really can instigate an awakening. And for me, it was I guess a rebirth into a totally different way of being. And for the first 9 months of my daughter's life, so she was extremely a touchy baby. Like she just needed to be held all the time, and I was there for it. And we just created this like really great bond. And at the same time, I felt so about her, because suddenly when I wasn't focused on myself, I started projecting like, how is it that I'm going to create this idealistic childhood for my child and give her everything that I ever wanted if I could go back and do it again. And in that process, I like totally left myself out of the equation. And it was I remember because we co-slept for a long time. And as I was trying to get her into the crib, because she like is not a docile sleeper, she's a kicker. And I was like, I can't. As I was trying to help her find her way into her own space, there's this one day at nap time, I remember it like so clearly. She was having a really hard time. And I was just like so able to be calm and there and present and accepting of this like kind of frustrating behavior, but like also it was just fine. It's what it was. And I just remember holding her and loving her and having this thought like, why have you never done this for yourself? Why is it that like you can hold so much space for this little person, which is beautiful, but why do you never hold this for yourself? Why is it that no matter what, you judge yourself, or you're hard on yourself, or you hurt yourself, or you sabotage yourself, or you're just, looking 5 steps down the road instead of just allowing yourself to be where you are? Why does that continue to happen? And then at that point, kind of at 9 months, was the transition for me to feel like I was myself again. And so I went back to the same astrologer and I was like, so I'm a mother. It was like, yeah, I know. And I was like, I'm feeling like there's something for me, and I need some help because I'm kind of lost. And she was like, well, those are for you to navigate, but you need, like, you're here to do something. Like, you're here to use your voice. You're here to create. Like, you can create what you want. You can create a business from home. Like all of your chart is like, yes, go. And so I left being like, what do I want to do? And then a bunch of things happened, like rapid fire. It was near my birthday last year. It was like, this is a really long story, by the way. Sorry.
No, it's great. It's fine.
And so I was like, yeah, so all of these ideas started coming in. I was like, mothering myself. This is what I'm about. Like, I've always been about self-worth, always supported people and wanted to support myself, and like doing the work to show up to live a life that feels abundant and feels like the life it is that we desire to create for ourselves. And my life story has been such a roller coaster ride in like every kind of amusement park. Like, it has not been a linear trajectory. I've traveled abroad, I've lived abroad, I've had like 5 different career paths in a decade. And I was just like, how can I kind of use all of my life experience and my childhood and the really still so vivid experiences that I felt as a child that a lot of people forget, but I remember like it was yesterday. I was like, how can I support this to support other people? And remembering like we need to mother ourselves, like we need to mother our children. And why is it that we are so other focused that we can't focus on ourselves? So that's how the podcast was born. Like and I've also, when I was 7, I've journaled since I was 7. I have every journal that I've ever started.
Wow.
And in my journals when I was 7, it just said, I'm going to grow up and be a writer. And that always stayed connected. I've always loved writing, always written. It's always been something that is a part of myself. And I still feel like I'm here to write. I also feel like I'm here to speak. I feel like I'm just here to share from experience with love to support people in writing their own story. Not because I have all the answers, never. Like I'm always figuring something out, but because I'm really open and being honest and being real and supporting people to truly open up to their whole life story, not just a specific chapter of it. And so that's kind of how the podcast started. And then fast forward 9 months later, it's like really rapidly growing, which is really cool to watch. And now, so I'm from that and opening my coaching services again, which I shut down for a while. So yeah, I feel like the podcast can be for everyone, but I feel always drawn to women and those who identify. So yeah, at the end of this month, I'm starting a 6-week container to support awakening women to reclaim their self-worth by unraveling their limited conditioning. So it's just kind of been like this. It's interesting. I was thinking today, I was looking back and I was like, man, it was less than a year ago. I started recording kind of the end of August last year. And it's just like, it says kind of happened really quickly, but really slowly over this very bizarre year. But it just feels like so in alignment with who I am and what I'm here to do.
Yeah, and then that shows as well. I think you've done it over 30 podcasts.
Yeah, I don't know how that's happened either. That's awesome. There's been like 3 batches where I just have like had the inspiration and have gone, and it is cool. It's so interesting. Like the first 12 episodes, like I can hear myself like giving myself permission to speak. Like, what am I doing? I read from old journals. I'm like, okay, like we'll see how this goes. And then as soon as COVID hit, I was like, I am intuitive. I have a lot of wisdom that like flows through. It's so interesting for me to listen because I listen back and I'm like, okay, that felt like very, not forced, but like, this is the prescription. And then like halfway through, it's like, I'm just going to tell you what I think. Yeah. And now we're just going to go with it. And what I've loved about this season, especially the one that is continuously unraveling now, is really speaking to the spiritual principles of our lives, but I feel like it's in very modern day terms. So I think one of the things that I find in the conscious community and the spiritual community and whatever it is you want to call it is like we are all humans, and there are some really multidimensional experiences that we're capable of having that I want to be in the conversation for. And at the same time, all of our emotions are human emotions. all of our experiences, our human experiences, everything that we go through cannot be fully healed just by having a Reiki session or doing a yoga class. Like, there are layers upon layers upon layers within our psyches, within our etheric field, within our auric field, within every kind of layer of this human potential that requires our care and love. And what I find really challenging is that there's so many different levels of awareness. And so, like, when we start a healing journey, we think we're going to get exponentially further down the road than we actually can go at any given point, because it just takes time. And what I love about the podcast is, like, it's just like a reminder for myself too, because often I'm recording when I'm like, what do I need to know right now? But it's just that reminder that, like, you are human. Things do happen. It doesn't define you. Even when it feels really hard and really tough and like things will never be okay again, it does get better because it's happened before, you know, like, you've been through something that was terrible. It sucks that things continue happening. Sucks that you continue feeling like you out jumped something that was holding you back only to find you're caught again against something else. But, like, that is our human evolution. Like, that is the beautiful process of what it is to become. And I think, going back to the beginning of our conversation, it's like, children, like, there's this end goal. We grow up out of childhood thinking like we're this final product, you know, like, you see your parents. And for me, I know growing up, I was like, they have all the answers. They know everything. They're done. But it also, like, being like, but they don't have all the answers because I see a different answer. Like, and I don't understand why the solution is this and not this. And, like, why we're not looking at things this way. But as a child, like, I didn't appreciate or understand that life was lifelong. Like, I just kind of thought I'd jump on the roller coaster seat, buckle in, and, like, go for a ride as an adult and not have to, like, do the work to continuously learn about myself and my life and who it is that I am. And I think that's such a great story to tell ourselves, that, like, you don't have to do any more work, but, like, for every generation, whether it is we're nearing end of life or we're midlife or at the beginning of our life, like, saying that we don't have the energy to change is really a great cop out to actually show up for yourself. People who say, like, I'm at this point in my life, like, I guess I'm done. Like, are you, or are you just giving up? Like, at any point, like, what else do you have? Is that it? Cool. Be who you are. But, like, if there's the tiniest bit about you that's like, there's something that I can change, there's potential for me to step into, there's something new I can try, why wouldn't you try it? Who cares if you mess up? Who cares if you fail? Like, your life is to be a creative process. And I think I'm just going on tangent after tangent, but I feel like that is what we're here for. It's just to create and paint and allow ourselves to try new things and love ourselves through the parts of ourselves that feel gross and sticky and very, very outdated.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think that's one of the biggest teachings, gifts we can give our children is, like, you know, we go through life and it's like, all right, we just need to, you know, go get through daycare if they go to daycare, and we just need to get through, you know, the end of the school year, and we celebrate at the end of the school year, and then, you know, we work, and then we might go to university or higher schooling or whatever, and it's always this goal of, we're not there yet, we're not there yet, we're not there yet. Like, and it's actually, what if we taught our children and ourselves, regardless of our age, of how beautiful now is? And we talk about this all the time, but it's actually really grasping that, right? Like, what does it actually mean not to be even, you know, going through the day just to make it to lunchtime or to make it to dinner, or sometimes as a parent to bedtime where our children are asleep so we can have time to ourselves instead of integrating in the moment with our children, or in those moments when we do have time for ourselves, which is beautiful. Because No, keep going.
Oh no, I was going to say this is so timely. My newsletter going out tomorrow is literally about how I keep hearing from people that they're looking forward to the end, like this last quarter of the year, because it means that we're going to jump into 2021 and this year will just be a wash. And I was like, okay, but as we all know from our personal experience, like time doesn't make anything better. Like you have to do the work to change what it is that feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you're not actually getting to the root of the things that are bringing you tension and turmoil and anxiety right now, like how is 2021 going to feel any better than it feels right now?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm a really big believer of that as well. And, I've, I can see how people can get caught up in that, but I often observe, people just saying, well, when is it going to happen? And it's almost like they're expecting to wake up tomorrow and this amazing new world is all of a sudden going to be on their doorstep, rather than realizing that actually that amazing new world is within inside us. It's us working together internally to move forward into that new world. It's not as tangible, I think, personally, that people expect, and it needs to start from within for us to be able to experience in our human form as well, right? Like, it's interesting, all of that. It's and you touched on I think a lot of this, and I've had conversations with other guests on this platform where we've spoken about the self-care, and especially as a mum in those early years, like I totally relate to what you were saying. Is that I feel like I didn't actually emerge from even allowing myself to be worthy or accepting of self-care until a lot longer, like a year and a half maybe after my daughter was born, if not longer, before I actually was like, hold on a minute, like I'm not giving myself any of that self-care. And we I've spoken with people around this a number of times, and it's almost like we self-sabotage ourselves. It's like we know what is good for us. We know when we step into that self-care, or whatever you want to call it, how nourishing it feels and how amazing it is for us, and how much we even we can parent better, and our relationships, regardless of whether it's partnership or work or whatever. But for some reason, we're often in resistance to allowing us that time, or to provide that to ourselves. And I just wondered, where does someone start with that, like with that resistance? Have you contemplated that quite a bit in regards to stepping into that? Because we know it's good for us. We know that it feels amazing when we provide ourselves. I remember a couple of years ago having a bath, and it was the first time I'd allowed myself that space, instead of rushing around when I had time for me, doing everything that wasn't actually nourishing, and getting into a hot bath and allowing myself to relax and just bursting into tears because it felt so amazing. And I couldn't believe I denied myself that moment, or a moment like that, for such an incredible amount of time. And it wasn't that I didn't look after myself. It was just actually stepping into a moment where I provided myself something that was so beautiful, with candles and things for me, without the guilt. And it's interesting, I would really like to hear your thoughts on that resistance, of why we resist that so much.
So what first comes up for me is, if it wasn't a practice before you have a child, it's never going to be an easy practice if you have a child. And then the second thing that comes up for me is, depending on the woman, if a woman had a career that was their child before they had a child, then all of that energy that went into work is suddenly going to move into their child. Like, there's always something, because we grow up in these lives where we're focused so much on what's outside of ourselves and not what's within ourselves. And so if our tendency is to focus on all of the things a part of our life but not ourselves, we're going to forget about ourselves, especially when there's a new life, because regardless of whatever it is that we see that could be useful for ourselves, we're going to choose that new life every single time, because they're part of us. We created them. And I think for me, like, what the biggest thing that I remember for myself, to remember myself, is that we're two different people, and that I truly cannot show up in a space of wholeheartedness with my child if I haven't given myself space to know where I'm at in my life. Like if I'm feeling like there are things that I'm not getting to for myself, whether that is work or that is just meditating or that is writing or going for a walk or just having like 5 minutes to myself to check in every day, I know that that's going to translate into how I parent with my child, because I'm going to be distracted on my phone, or I'm going to be in my head, or I'm going to be somewhere else and not in the moment that we're in together. And so I think self-care at its most foundational aspect is like, if you want to be a good parent, you have to take care of yourself. And it's not about how much time you give to your child. It's not about how much time you give to yourself. Like it's not a quantifiable thing. It's just knowing that you're putting yourself in as much of the forefront of your life as you're putting other people and other things in it. Because it's going to be different for everyone. It's going to look different some days more so than others. Like we can't hold ourselves to a standard that isn't going to be fair to ourselves, that we hate ourselves more because we're like, I'm forgetting myself again. But I think it's also something to speak about with our children, to say like, hey, I love you so much that I'm going to go take a break for a little bit. Because like, I remember I studied psychology in college, and my college essay was on attachment parenting. And it is really like, it's not so much about the amount of quantity time you have with your child, it's all about quality. If you're with your child all the time and you're not connecting with them, your child's going to feel like you're absent, more so than a parent who's there half hour a day in the moment playing with their child. That child's going to feel love and care and attention. It becomes mindfulness about like what it is that we're choosing and how it is we're choosing to show up. And I always push parents who feel like they aren't paying attention with their child, or they can't concentrate in the moment with their child, to uncover what it is that's keeping their attention. Because that's what your self-care needs to be about. What is it that's keeping you from being with your child? And when you use it that way and you're feeling guilty that like taking time for yourself is like a bad thing, then you can be like, well, I'm taking time for myself to understand what's happening within me so that I can be a more connected parent.
I love that. Yeah. I love the asking, like asking what that resistance is as to why. And I'm totally there with you on the quality side. It's and it makes a huge difference. Like, with it, I'm in a co-parenting, example, and transitions between parent or even just daycare drop-offs on the day that my daughter goes to daycare. Like if I haven't spent that time with her in the morning, even if it's just like she still loves to sit on me while she eats breakfast, and I don't mind at all. It's a connection. She just wants to be close to me, and she knows that when she's on top of me, I'm not going anywhere. She has my attention. But it just, I know when I'm out on the alignment with that, or if I've been rushing in the morning, or I haven't given her that time before we need to drop her off somewhere or whatever. Because she doesn't feel willing to go, or or to release from that. So yeah, absolutely. And that's just a small example of that. And just I guess the last thing for me really from you is if someone was struggling, and you've touched on this, but I guess just because it's such a big thing, if someone was really struggling to step into that self-care or self-love, what's maybe one or two practices that they could begin with that you would recommend, or a step for them to take forward? Or just, and even anything if you would like to relate it more to like how they could just step into mothering themselves more, or to kind of just have that awareness, because I know some people out there just even get overwhelmed at where to start, or the thought of actually trying to step forward into that.
Oh, I have so many things to say. I'll try not to go totally crazy. So I think one of the hardest things for people, myself included, is to allow ourselves to receive. So much of the time we're giving, we're taught to give. And it's so challenging for us to accept a compliment, to accept love, to accept kindness, to accept generosity, how many times do we shrug it off and say like, no, it's okay, I've got it? Like, how many times do we just say like, I am in this like little human entity and I'm independent and I don't need to rely on anyone? Like, we've just created a society that's all about functioning on autopilot on our own without relying on community. And I think we can't learn how to be in a community until we learn how to be within ourselves, truly. Because what is a relationship again, if you don't know how to love yourself and you don't know how to support yourself and know your boundaries and what protects you? Like, if you don't know your space, then it's going to be really difficult to invite other people in because we're so busy. Like, I don't have anything else to give you. Like, we're protecting ourselves from like more depletion. So I would say, and this goes for me too, like, always need to remind myself this. Like, self-care is as simple as brushing your teeth and telling yourself that you love your teeth and that you're grateful for your teeth, because right now I've been having some serious dreams where I lose my teeth. So I know that means a lot of things, but like the things that like you find that you're like you find appreciation for, that like you just recognize, like, I'm writing today, like, oh, thank you, hand. Like, the more you can find just in those simple moments, just appreciation for yourself and what your body is capable of, or what it is that you're working on. Like, those conversations with yourself go a really long way, because you're literally telling your biosystem, you're telling your physical body, you're telling your energetic body, you're telling your emotional body that you love and care for yourself and you're grateful for what you're capable of doing and what you're doing in this moment. And it's like gratitude changes everything. Gratitude's what is not into more than enough. And sometimes it gets really overwhelming to look in our lives and look in our world and be like, what am I grateful for? I don't want to do this practice. But every day you see with your eyes, every day you write with your hands, you speak with your mouth, you walk with your legs. Like, there's so much you have to be so grateful for that allows you to do these things that we take for granted and we just tell ourselves it's no big deal. That everything that you do is out of a miracle, because you are a miracle. We are all a huge miracle. It is amazing that this egg and the sperm met and met up, and then your soul moved through and you like made it into this earthly realm.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm really big on gratitude as well, even as a tool to really, through those really hard parenting moments, stepping into a place of gratitude. It's just one of the most easiest tools for me personally that is one of my go-tos. That whole, I have friends who have and some who are going through IVF at the moment, but understanding that process of actually the introduction of the sperm and egg is incredible. Like, it blew my mind talking to a friend to understand that process of what they do. And there is apparently a moment in the whole reproductive system where that science can't explain what happens as part of that process, and I've often since then have wondered whether that is when the soul chooses to come through into that with those parents, like, it blows my mind, all of that. But it's incredible. It's a miracle in itself, right? Like, yeah, just as a side tangent there, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. Susan, we probably should wrap up there. I'm just conscious of time. Is there anything else? We do have time. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? We could definitely put links to the podcast and everything there. You've spoken a bit about your coaching offering that's coming up soon. When was that?
Yes, so I'm going to run them throughout the rest of the year, I think. But the initial launch, first course of this container. It's called Mothering Her, and enrollment is now. So if you're interested, I'd love to set up a connection call or chat with you. You can follow me on Instagram or on Facebook. It's Transformative Mothering, or through the podcast, the Mothering Myself podcast. But yeah, I would love you to join us. It's for those who identify as a woman. It's limited to a gender identity, but it is for those who are ready to step into and reclaim their self-worth and go on a journey with themselves. And things that I hear from people are like, that sounds energetically overwhelming, or like, I don't know that I have the space for it. And I can promise you this course is only created with the highest of intentions. It's full of unconditional love. There are visualizations and meditations to support your journey backward, but only to show you aspects of yourself. This is about reclaiming yourself, not unpacking your relationships. So it's 6 weeks. It starts kind of like traveling back, and then by the end, we find ourselves in this moment, learning how to support ourselves forward powerfully and embodying all that we are.
Oh, that sounds amazing. It
Yes,
does
come
sound
join
amazing.
us.
Yeah, I tell you what, in the back of my mind, I'm a bit of a or I just love people's offerings and what they're about so much that I sign up sometimes to too much and then get overwhelmed, because I just love, I'm a really big believer that we're all here to support each other with everything that comes through. I don't believe that me personally don't feel that we should ever be in a position where we can't learn from another. And I think all these offerings, and when I speak to people, I'm like, oh, that sounds amazing. But at the moment I'm involved in coursework, and that's where my attention needs to be. But yeah, it's amazing. I just, there are so many amazing things, and this set does absolutely sound amazing, and it's just so needed. I think we really need to step more into that self-care, and I like to think it as soul care is what I talk with raising Alchemy, because it's more than just that self-love. It goes a lot deeper. It's a lot more in depth than just doing something nice for yourself.
Well, I think that's the thing, right? It's like many of us don't know how to love ourselves. Like, you can say self-love all you want, but the practice of it it just goes over our heads, because what does it actually mean? But that's a deeper conversation of like, do we truly understand love? And we hit on that a little bit in this podcast, but love isn't airy-fairy. It isn't a word to be like, oh, that's nice. Like, love is the most powerful word in our vocabulary. It is our experience in every moment, holding the duality. And the unconditional love is literally what allows us to have the experience of humans on this earth, in this realm. And so, yeah, my hope is that in the years to come, we remember more that love is truly who we are.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Sounds amazing. So we'll put the links up to that as well. I'll put something in the comments as well for that. Susan, is there anything else you'd like to add just to wrap up?
Just thank you so much. It's been such a fun conversation to have.
Yeah, it's been amazing and totally timely for me. I just needed to be reminded about a lot of what you spoke about, so thank you. It's amazing how all of that aligns as well, right? Like, just jumping on here and hearing that, and it's just really has warmed my soul. So thank you very, very much. It's been amazing to have you on here, and I really encourage those. Hi to those on the live. I know there's been people in and out. But yeah, definitely to check out your podcast, because your message is just so beautiful, and I don't think we can, I think re-listening to what we think we know and what we think we have learned and revisiting that, I think it's really important to do so often, because I've listened to some of your podcasts and I'm like, I knew that. I need to be reminded about that. And then I really drop more deeper into listening of your message as it comes through. And so I think it's really important, and it's encouraging to be able to listen to that externally again. I think it's really important. So yeah, thank you for your message, because I think it's really needed and really valuable for people. So yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
Bye.